What are some maybe tangible things that you've seen actually, physically help somebody be able to maybe pitch a little faster?
Gain some weight. I mean, most of the kids are, skinny. Make sure we're pushing off the back leg. Make sure we're driving here. Hip turn, this. If they don't have the musculature.
From the functional side of fitness, deadlifts or squats, flat-footed, etc., that actually messes with athleticism.
If you're strong, you can get into good positions and you can get out of good positions. And you're going to be able to get out of bad positions if you're strong. To hear parents talk about like, once he has Tommy John, he's going to come back and throw harder. He can't play the sport that you say he loves. So is he going to come to the gym every day? Is he going to do his exercises 7 times a day? He's 14. Hormones are kicking. Girls are there. And you want this for your kid because he's going to throw harder when he comes back. I just like how pissed off it makes Nsima. Because you think you're so goddamn stoic. And when I mention it, I just the steam coming out of your fucking ears.
Oh, God.
I'm going to watch that podcast and just watch Nsima.
You won't see shit. You won't see shit.
The best thing is
I'll see. Yeah, I know what to look for. I'm going to see a lot of shit. That's what I'm saying.
The best thing is you can't even see us. Like he can't see us, and he's talking shit.
Right. It's just amazing.
Like doesn't know who we are, can't see us, and he's talking shit. What?
Where in the pantheon of guests does he fall?
I don't know. Time will tell, I guess.
It was definitely one of the more memorable ones, just because, we've talked to abrasive guests, but not that abrasive,
right?
And again, Jack knows a lot. It was a fun podcast. I learned a lot, but again, he was trying to push those buttons
because he came out hot, but so did Dr. Batar, but Batar did it differently, even though he still had kind of the same thing, where he's yelling at people. Mm-hmm. But it was different.
No one ever came out hotter than Mike Dolce.
Oh shit!
Dude, yeah. No one was safe.
He came out swinging right out of the gate. It's like, whoa, that was pretty monstrous.
After Goggins too,
he's going after everybody.
Damn,
everybody was in his way of destruction, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Did he just get to a point where he's just like, fuck it? Is it or like? Does he even care? And is he just to a point where he just doesn't care?
Dolce, you think?
Yeah. Or why the turn? Because he never, I don't remember him being that kind of combative.
Yeah, why'd he come out and
why now?
Hit somebody with a chair when the ref was turned the other way?
He's not even supposed to be here tonight.
He had the famous heel turn. Yes. I think he's just tired of hearing it from people. And I think, some people try to get on this moral high ground, and he's like, no, I don't think so. You don't get to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't, whenever anybody does that, I'm always like, well, why you? Why do you, you know what I mean?
Why do you get to judge or,
yeah, I don't know.
Why are you now the executioner?
Yeah, we're all pretty fucked up. So I don't know. I don't know if judging people for their morals is a great place to be. I think, fitness wise and nutrition wise, we're trying to judge the information that you have.
Right.
And that information can get muddled on how you deliver it, as, per Jack Cruz.
Yes.
Interesting. It's hard to listen to it. But then you got someone like Andrew Huberman, who's been Huberman will explain stuff, and then he'll maybe say this is not my area of expertise. I want to repeat that. I'm not a doctor in this area.
Right.
But here's what I think. And then he's so intelligent and brings out studies and information where you're like, oh, wow, this is really cool. And then I think that people tend to want to share that. It's a positive message, but not everyone can do that. Not everyone can execute that way. And so that's why I think we see so many different types of messages. It seems like if you're not the squeaky wheel and you're not figuring out a way to make some noise, then it's difficult to get attention via social media, which you're super prolific on social media. You're always updating your page and
I'm doing great.
Tons of stunning information on your
thanks.
Got a whole
media
team
page.
Behind it.
Thanks a bunch.
Yeah, you must have a squad.
Yeah, I do.
Lots of AI.
Yep, all AI. It's not even me.
Yeah, Jesse Burdick is nowhere to be found on social media. He's on there.
I'm there somewhere.
But you're coaching, and that's something I've always appreciated about you, is that you're actually coaching.
Yeah.
And a lot of the coaches that we know are similar to that, where, a lot of the best coaches, there's a lot of great coaches that are online and that have a a lot of great information online and on YouTube and stuff like that. But as you kind of peel back the layers deeper and deeper, that's not where they're spending the most of their time. Someone like an Eric Cressy, he's known online very well, but he's also somebody who's just knee deep in the actual work all the time.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what I want to do. You know, I want to coach, and I want to be able to watch someone get better and know that I help them, you know, leave better. And, you know, the social media thing I think is great. I love it because I can kind of keep track of people, and, you know, it points me into some directions that I'll look for more information and for learning purposes. And, you know, it's a tool. And I think, you know, I thought I was, you know, a lot better with it and at it. And I always think like I want to go back, but there's a couple things that really colored my thoughts on it. You know, when Katie was pregnant and she was doing some workouts, like the hate and vitriol and your baby's gonna fucking die and like these things. And I was just like, man. And then, you know, someone, you know, made comments about like, oh, the girls are looking really good. And like, then there's some, you know, they're 12 and then, you know, during COVID and Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd, all this other stuff, it was like, why aren't you coming out and say something? I'm like, because I'm not your fucking dad. And I don't really care what you fucking think of me. You know, my opinions are my own. If you want to know my opinions, like if it's you and I, yeah, we can talk about it, but everybody doesn't need to know it because I'm going to say something and it's going to get taken however someone wants to color it for me. And it became a can't win, don't try thing. And it's just not worth my effort to really try and push things. And I have a guy who's doing a lot more video stuff for me. And we're kind of, since we got to the new gym, and putting a whole bunch of stuff together. And we're going to try and push kind of the athlete side of things and try and get more people in there, because it's really cool to get to see these kids get better and succeed in college and then in life. And, you know, and now it's crazy because one of my interns just, you know, he's a doctor of physical therapy. He came back from Iowa and saw one of the freshmen in high school when he was my intern who was graduating and about to graduate college. It was such a weird thing. He was just like, wow, you were my age when I was yelling at you, trying to get you to do, you know, some sled work or whatever the hell it is. So it's kind of cool to see like those things kind of come full circle. And that's what I'm in it for, more than, you know, views, likes, whatever. That's, I don't know. I don't know if I'm right or if I'm wrong. It's just, you know, how I kind of feel about it. And I always think, you know, I'd always like to do a lot more, but I would like to spend time with my kids even more than that. So it's just not high on my priority list of things to do.
Do you still consume social media though?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's, you know, I initially thought of social media as just like, oh, this is a sick way to be able to just kind of keep tabs on people, because I'm terrible. You know, I don't know when anybody's birthday is. I don't like, I'm really like legitimately bad at that. And, you know, to get a reminder or someone saying happy birthday, I'm like, oh shit, hey, happy birthday, you know, and, you know, those sorts of things to keep kind of tabs on people and putting up pictures of, you know, like kids and doing some stuff. And it's awesome. And then, you know, and then it just gets, you know, and then if you are lucky enough to have a lot of eyeballs on you, eventually it's just going to kind of get weird. But yeah, I still look and I still want to know what's kind of going on. I don't read any comments, so I don't know, you know, Katie does all the time. And she like, she cries, you know, over some of the hate and vitriol that you get all the time. She's like, I can't believe that he can put up with that. I was like, I don't think he looks at it. So, you know, and it's also something to try to teach the girls, because they're inevitably, you know, they're out there, they're consuming social media and posting and doing stuff, and trying to show them that it's not dominating my life, and therefore they can live a life without it, because they're, you know, in the high school scene, it's just so prevalent and it's just everywhere and it's all the time.
One of your daughters was on a podcast, right?
Yes, she was. It was really, and you know what? She didn't even tell me. It like came up, and I was, and it was awesome. But it's one of those end around like learning things, right? I'm like, okay, so the next time a guy that you don't know from Los Angeles calls you and asks to be on a podcast, can you ask me first so I can figure out who the fuck this dude is?
Right.
And she was just like, I mean, I guess. I'm like, can you just help me out?
Dad,
just
why are you acting so overprotective?
I know.
People in LA are nice.
Yeah. So it was, she was. And she, and I would have, to her credit, she did awesome. She crushed it. She did so good. She is intelligent, but she came off very intelligent, very polite, and she did a great job. I was really proud of her, but it was also one of those things where it's like, oh man, let me help you just a little bit.
How have you navigated coaching your own kids? Because both your kids are very active in so many different sports, and parents are kind of confused on like, what should they kind of nudge or shove their kid into, or when should they kind of back off?
I think it's a delicate balance, and I think everybody's going to have, everybody's kids are going to be different, and everyone's approach is going to be different. But I always kind of go back to the at the end of the day, it's like, do you have fun? Yeah, awesome. And that should be it, right? And if they're not having fun and you're forcing them to do something because you did it, or you're trying to live vicariously through them, it's never going to work out well, right? And I was talking to someone the other day. He was like, you never want to be your kid to be like the best 11-year-old in anything, because eventually that means they've probably already peaked, and it's going to be, and it's a long, hard road. I always encourage people to try to play as many sports as possible, do a whole bunch of stuff all the time, because it'll keep your kids occupied, and they won't have a bunch of dead time and fill it with, going to, parties in the middle of the forest or whatever it was. And just, I tried to farm the girls out, because I was like, I don't want to be that dad.
Yeah.
Like that's like probably like my greatest fear is like 20 years down the line, they're crying, to a psychologist about, if my dad did, like, I really don't want to be that dude. And, I don't want anything that I've ever done or said or anything to negatively affect them. That would be a nightmare for me. So I tried to just give them to like Tiff and to Jeremy. And then for a while they were working out with Katie in the garage. And eventually they were just like, hey, Dad, can we just, and it just so happened to coincide with a bunch of like high school boys that were at the gym as well. It's like, can we come to the gym? We're like, yeah, sure. And what was really cool for them, they've been lifting since they've been, born. They're just really good at it. So everyone's like, what the hell? Why are you so good at this? Why are you lifting more than the, sophomore, quarterback or, linebacker or whatever? It's like, I don't know. I've just been doing this forever.
They're like front squatting what the boys can't squat. Period. Right?
Yes. So in that sense of the words, it gives them a little bit of confidence. And that's really kind of cool to see. But I really try to make sure, again, I treat them like I would any other athlete. It's like, hey, how you doing? How we feel? Like good day? Yeah, cool. What do we have? We have this, and this for the week? Yeah. All right. So let's try and plan out. Let's front load, back load the week, and we'll kind of go from there. Let's not get too sore. Like, hey, remember this kind of hurts my shoulder. It's like, okay, cool. Let's change this, and that. So I try to, I try not to treat them extra special. This sounds weird. Try not to treat them extra special, but I try to just make sure that they understand, like, look, you're here. This is what we do. If I was a butcher, you're going to come to the butcher shop and you're going to, like cut meat and shit. That's just, and this is just kind of what we do. And, to their credit, they've kind of bought into it, and they have, sports recruits profiles, which is a recruiting profile for like softball, volleyball, whatever. And consistently their biggest, the videos that the coaches watch the most is when they're doing like heavy deadlifts.
Oh, wow.
Which for me, I was just like, I'm fucking right. I told you, motherfuckers. Right. And, I didn't say that to them, but just generally all of you, I said that too. And it was really cool, and they really liked it again because they're good at it. And they're just like, there's a coach who was like, you are how old? 15. You deadlifted for 3. What my college kids can't deadlift. I'm like, that's amazing. That's what, the top kid, that's the senior who lifted. I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm like, well, I've just been doing it a long time. I've been doing it since I've been 3. And they're just like, that's awesome. That's really good.
And
so
that hasn't messed with any of that athleticism, has it?
No, it's weird. Yeah. I did make them muscle bound. They are still being asked out way too much by boys.
They can sprint? You sure they can sprint?
Yeah. They can move. That's, I mean, they're both aspiring to play softball. Casey is committed to the University of Washington to play softball, and that's part of their left-handed. And if they touch the ball and you take 1/2 of a second, you cannot make a mistake, or it's a base hit for them. So it's pretty cool. And I mean, that's something that they rely on and are very proud of, is how fast that they are. So they can move really well.
Super cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to know that because, like, obviously you're hands-on with many athletes, and we've had different coaches that have come onto the podcast, whether it's from GOTA or ATG, and actually in a few months we're going to be having Naudi Aguilar from Functional Patterns on, right? Mm-hmm. And some of these coaches from the functional side of fitness, they believe that, like, athletes doing these deadlifts or squats, flat-footed, et cetera, that actually messes with athleticism because of the spinal compression and the way the impact on the feet, et cetera. But that doesn't seem to be what you've seen being hands-on with many high school, college, and professional level athletes, right?
Right.
Why is that?
I will forever and ever die on the hill of strength with the sword of strength. And that's what I always come down to. If you can... if you're strong, you can get into good positions, and you can get out of good positions, and you're going to be able to get out of bad positions if you're strong. The efficiency of movement might not be there, but being able to be strong and get in and out of stuff. There are many people who off camera, offline, where I'm like, I'm right? If you just get strong, then you can get in there like, like, okay, cool. So, I feel justified in knowing that and talking to really, really high level people, and then also kind of seeing it where you can't be so dogmatic about what you're doing and just really stick to one thing with people. Like, no, we're only squatting, only benching, and only deadlifting. Like, okay, I can see where that's going to be bad, but I feel like that is because I'm a strength guy and I'm going to die on that fucking hill forever. That's what people think I'm doing. We're maxing out, with bands and, box squat. And it's basically,
there's torque.
It's Dave Tate. And exactly. And it's like, that's not actually what we're doing. There's it's very regimented and it's very, very dialed back, because I understand that can happen but it's just like, oh man, I'd look like you if I started to lift weights. I'm like, oh really? Like, that's what would get you. If you look at weights, you get big. Like, man, I wish I had that problem. Yeah. It's the same thing. It's like, you shouldn't deadlift. You're going to get muscle bound and you're going to get disc compression. Like, or maybe if you do it right, you'll be just fine. Mm-hmm. So I think, in order to develop those problems, you have to be doing it either wrong for a very long time, or long and probably too heavy for a long time,
or in isolation, because like all the athletes that you're working with, like they're athletes first. They're on the field, they're doing the sprints, they're doing all of this, and then everything that you're probably doing in the gym is supplementing their athleticism. Yes.
And that's what I always tell the dads, like, oh, gotta get her strong. Like, she's 84 pounds. It's okay. What I'm gonna do is try and help her be a better lacrosse player, track athlete, soccer player. Like, when that has run its course and she wants to be a powerlifter, I got her too. Don't worry about it. But let's not put too much emphasis on her, on her 18-inch box squat. It doesn't matter. What matters is can she kick ass on the field? And that's what should matter. And if that's not, when you're dealing with certain populations, if that's not your goal with that population of getting them better at their sport, you're doing it wrong. And I think too many people will think like, oh, you're doing it wrong because, like, well, you can't punish me because there's idiots out there in the world. So I think, but I also think that people need to realize that, people are going to pick something and they're going to die on that hill. It might not be the same hill that I'm on, but it's going to, this is what gets me attention. This is what gets me views. This is what gets me paid. That's cool. Like, I respect that. And there's always something to be learned. Mm-hmm. And more often than not, when you talk to those people off camera, you get to have a personal conversation with them. Like, yeah, I know we got to do all this stuff, but this is my thing. Well, that's great. That's cool. And I think there's so many more people who we're in so much more agreement than we are argument most of the time. I mean, how can we argue, nuts and bolts of things, right? It should make up 80, 90% of everything that's out there. the other, whatever is left, 20%, it doesn't even matter, right? So, I mean, everybody needs to eat well, sleep, work out some way, be able to, if you're an athlete, be able to sprint, change direction, rotate, recover from it somehow, some way. And how you accomplish that oftentimes doesn't matter until you get into a spot where it's like, hey, this is a $10 million arm. Like, all right, cool. We're gonna really, really injury prevent here. We're not gonna worry about these things because anything you do that's $10 million.
I think the big difference again is that you physically are working with people in person. I know that you do some online consulting and stuff like that as well. But when you work with people in person, you can make different adjustments and you can talk much differently. It might be easier for us to have this kind of broad stroke and say, like, here's how I think everyone should train. Everyone should train in regards to, throwing, running, jumping, and say like, that's going to be healthy and that's going to be safe and so on. But when you're actually working with individuals and you see someone that might be stiff, that might already have the lifting side down, you're like, well, strength isn't really a big problem for this guy.
Right.
That's when you can make an adjustment and say like, well, this guy's movement patterns aren't great. He doesn't need to spend any more. He doesn't need to do 10 sets of 10 of deadlifts. It's just going to tighten him up even worse. Let's find some other things that are going to, help this guy improve his athleticism, things like that.
Yeah. There's always other things to kind of attack. And Cressy, who we talked about, he's starting to find kind of the top end of things. So like, okay, look, this guy just did 700 pounds on the, axle or the
trap bar,
deadlift. Like we don't need to do any more than that. That's we can peak up to that and that's that. And then you get cut off. People are like, I want to do more. Like there is, when you're dealing with this as a profession, a point of diminishing returns, and the risk to reward ratio is just tilted one way or the other. And, but until you get to that, you can always find better ways to do stuff. Right. And I mean, like we were talking about kind of being, one arm dominant or, kind of, it's just kind of the way it is. Right. And I mean, you can try to work yourself out of it, but it could also work to, a deficit. If someone has some sort of uniqueness to them and you work so hard to beat that out of them, are they the same person and the same athlete anymore? Maybe they move different. Maybe that helps you. You have no idea. Right. And it's just who you are. So you have to work with, and it is very difficult. People are like, oh, just wait till AI gets here. It's like, okay. It's like I get so much more from watching people walk in than anything else. I'm just like, oh, okay. Like almost 80%, I know what I'm going to get you from you today. And it's just because, I know who you are. I know how you walk. I know your mannerisms. I know, how you're talking to me. Are you happy, smiling, whatever, joking around with people, or dragging your feet? And it's like, you can tell a lot. And that's what a piece of paper can't do. And that's where kind of the magic happens. And then it's also just like, all right, man, let's go. This is bullshit. You moved that fine. I know it doesn't feel good, but let's go. Let's go. So those are the cool things that you get to do in person. And that's kind of the magic, and that's the cool spot. And that's what, that's what I want to do. That's what I really like to do. And I feel like I'm really good at it too. So that always helps.
Do you think that there are any actual like drawbacks to the actual compression of like squats or the compression that individuals get from lifting heavier loads as athletes? The reason why I ask is because, again, on the other side of things, that's one of the negatives that some of the functional individuals believe when it comes to squatting or deadlifting loads. They think like that compression on the spine isn't going to be good for the athlete. What are your thoughts and what have you seen?
I would say I would agree with them, on 90% of the time, right? Okay. But as a coach, as someone working with people, you have to understand, like, if they can't do a bird dog or a dead bug or be able to hold a plank, you probably don't have the stability in core, trunk, whatever you want to call it, in order to stabilize that weight. And you probably shouldn't do over whatever you want to call it, 70%, let's say, because 70% you can still move pretty fast.
Yeah.
You shouldn't go over that, because now you're drifting into water that this athlete is not prepared for. Mm-hmm. You have to kind of dance on that line in order to see what it is that we need to take care of and what we need to improve on, what quality of, whether it's muscular movement, range of motion, tissue quality, et cetera. Have to find out what that is, and then you can kind of train that and get that better. But if you never get there, you're never going to find out. And then you're going to get into a sport and you're going to do something, and, I don't know how prepared you will be, if you're not at least doing something hard in the gym. You can do something hard, meaning challenging, mentally challenging, a ton of reps, a big burn, or just, a sprint, something great. But I don't think anybody in this room is going to argue with me when I say a heavy deadlift in your hand, a heavy bar on your back. You have to go to a special place, and you can only get it doing that, no matter what you do. And there's some magic in there. Now, it doesn't have to be 99.99%. But, anything over 80%, you have to kind of get there to challenge that stuff.
Yeah.
And, but I would never put anyone like my 84 pound, soccer player. I'd never put 225 on the bar and say, hey, let's see if you can squat this. That's just irresponsible.
Yeah.
You're right. And, if they don't meet certain markers, yeah, absolutely not. They should not do this. Or, whether it goes to trap bar or a kettlebell or whatever it is. That's the stuff that precurses all that stuff. But it's not sexy, and it's not fun, and it's not the stuff you're going to see posts on. But that's, everybody wants to get to that top spot. And I mean, talk to Cressy about it all the time. He's just like, I just want Max Scherzer's program for my kid. It's like the 41-year-old, multiple Cy Young Award winner who's had surgery and all this other, you want his program? It's like, I think you should probably want the program for your kid, not the professional baseball player. No, I want to do what he's doing so he can turn into that. It's like, but that's not where he started. He got to here by going through a lot of other stuff. But everyone wants that. Everyone wants to, squat 400, 500 pounds as an athlete and do all this other sexy stuff. And it's just like, you make your most amount of money doing all the other crap.
Yeah.
So it's my job to convince parents and kids, like, I know, this sucks, but go drag the sled, do this 10 movement pattern warm up thing. And then I'm going to distract you over here and you're going to lift. And then you have to go do a bunch of other stuff. And it's in a timed situation and you got to go. And then you're like, oh man, that was awesome. It's like, what did I lift? Does it matter? I guess not. Cool. See you later. Right. But if you're focusing so much on numbers, then things can get weird. So, it's irresponsible for people to not have a list of stuff, a warm up, and these markers in order to graduate into certain things. And if you don't, you're going to hurt an athlete. And that's your choice. That's their choice. If you're a good marketer, it doesn't matter because people will keep coming in. But if you actually care about the kids, and when kids have surgery, and it's horrible. It's really, really tough.
Yeah.
It's to see, and it's really, because I get to deal with a lot of baseball players, to hear parents talk about like, once he has Tommy John, he's going to come back and throw harder. It's like, that's a year. That's a minimum of a year. That's a really crazy, invasive, awful surgery. And the success rate is not good. For these crazy athletes who have millions of dollars, not everybody can come back and be the same thing. You're going to tell me that your 14-year-old is going to be able to come back and do this? First of all, does he have the mental capacity to not do anything for a year with his buddies? He can't play the sport that you say he loves, right? So is he going to come to the gym every day? Is he going to do his exercises 7 times a day? Is he going to do the icing and do all the, blood flow work, Mark Pro stuff for a year? He's 14. Hormones are kicking. Girls are there. Whatever is going on. And you want this for your kid? Because he's going to throw harder when he comes back.
Is there like some positive adaptation after Tommy John surgery?
So the whole idea is, your UCL, like if it's lax, stretched, whatever, right? So you want the layback, but you need it. So they tighten it up and your velo is a little bit better because you get a little bit of a better spring, like coming off the layback to throw, right? It's not 1 for 1. It doesn't always work as far as like the velo and everything. But, there's so many things that can go wrong, right? I mean, who was it? Felix Bautista, who was the Orioles closer last year, had to have Tommy John. And his timeline got pushed way back because when they're going in there, there's also the ulnar nerve. So he had no fingertip feeling. So they had to go in and transpose the nerve and move it underneath or around the tendon. So, I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong. And there's people who are cavalierly just saying like, it'll be okay. He'll be better afterwards. It's like, it's just not reality. So, you just have to, those expectations and those like thought processes are just so weird.
Yeah.
So, I try to have really not hard conversations, but realistic conversations. Like, I don't think you want that, man. Like, I think you should take a better approach to these things. And, I feel like that's part of what I do really, really well. And it's just like, yeah, let's focus on some low-hanging fruit. Let's clean up our diet, sleep, stay off the phone a little bit, maybe do some rehab exercises, have a warm-up routine before you throw. Don't, expect to go from 0 to 100 right away all the time, no matter what a coach says of you or what they need of you. And oftentimes it's the parents that you have to convince sometimes, because there are people who are like, I don't care. So if it takes a couple years, I'm fine with it. Do you think he's ready to, he needs to throw like next week though. Can we do that? Like, wait, you said you're cool with it taking a year. It's like, well, but his team really needs him, and I paid for the season already.
So coach said it needs to be faster pitching.
So yeah, I would really like it if we could get him, like next week. Like, okay, good luck.
Yeah, work your magic.
Yeah.
For the month of April, you're going to receive 25% off all Vivo barefoot shoes. Nsima, can you tell us why these shoes are so great?
For years on this podcast, we've been talking about the benefit of barefoot shoes. And these are the shoes I used to use back in like 2017, 2018. My old Metcons. They are flat, but they're not very wide and they're very stiff and they don't move. That's why we've been partnering with and we've been using Vivo barefoot shoes. These are the Modus Strength shoe, because not only are they wide, I have wide ass feet, and so do we here on the podcast, especially as our feet have gotten stronger, but they're flexible. So when you're doing certain movements, like let's say you're doing jumping or you're doing split squats or you're doing movements where your toes need to flex and move, your feet are able to do that and perform in this shoe, allowing them to get stronger over time. And obviously, they're flexible. So your foot's allowed to be a foot. And when you're doing all types of exercise, your feet will get stronger, improving your ability to move. Andrew, how can they get their hands on these?
Yes, and for the month of April, you're going to receive 25% off all of your Vivo barefoot shoes. That is a limited time deal for the month of April only. So if you've been waiting for the perfect time to buy your Vivo barefoot shoes, now is that time. Head over to vivobarefoot.com/powerproject, enter the code for April, and receive 25% off your entire order. Link is in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
What are some things that you've seen that have really helped, like in terms of like bat speed or in terms of pitching? Like it's probably like not easy to say, like lifting, a stronger bench press or a stronger clean and jerk has helped, a throw. But what are some maybe tangible things that you've seen actually, physically help somebody be able to maybe pitch a little faster?
Gain some weight. I mean, most of the kids are, skinny. And being able to put some weight on them. Again, it's that kinesthetic feel that we were kind of talking about as well, where, we can talk about these airy things, like make sure we're pushing off the back leg, make sure we're driving here, hip turn, this. If they don't have the musculature or the weight to kind of move around and make that a substantial, like, oh, okay, yeah, I see when I squeeze my glute, when I push into the floor, I understand that. If they don't have that, then you can talk. If they're a 1%er, then you don't have to tell them what to do. But like, hey, just remember, show up on time. Just show up on time in a uniform, and that'd be great. There are those kids.
Like Nolan Ryan may have thrown as fast as he's thrown without hardly any weights, maybe. I don't know.
But I mean, he did throw hard, but he was on the forefront of strength and conditioning for the baseball world, because for a long time, what is it? Facing Ryan, I think, is the documentary. It's awesome. So good. It is so cool. And if you're a baseball fan at all, I mean, Nolan Ryan's a god. And to go through all of his career, it's pretty fascinating. But he credits weightlifting with and he was back in like the old like Nautilus days. Like, so I mean, like it could be, I'm looking at it going like, oh man. But it's still, that guy's a horse of a human being. And it
said the way they used to test, how fast the ball's going. Like if they were to test it now, it'd be like maybe like 110 miles an hour or something. I don't know if I'm saying that accurately, but it was just nuts.
Yeah, it's like the radar used to be kind of behind the backstop, but now they're able to figure out, kind of shorten it up. But yeah, he in the late, he pitched into, I want to say he pitched into, it was like 45 or something along those lines. And, the last probably 10, 15 of his years, he credits to being able to lifting and, keep himself healthy. And he figured out that he was breaking down, and that helped him out. And he worked out, and he worked out hard.
I remember Ventura charged the mound, and he beat this guy. Charged the mound in Nsima
when he was older already too.
Yeah, he's in
40 plus.
He's in his 40s. He threw a ball to like brush the guy back, which is pretty normal. But the guy took exception to it, and he charged the mound. And then Nolan Ryan got him in a headlock and beat the guy's ass. It was amazing.
He's a testament to just this is that was it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if
they'll probably show
there you go. Yep.
Look, how old school is that?
Like his little brothers who just bink.
He was a savage, and he's a testament to hard work and just being an absolute monster. And that's such a good movie. Such a good movie.
Check that out.
A client of mine, he took 10 of us. He's like, we got to go see this. We're all going. It was in the theater. See, so you're lifting. Okay. Yeah. I think it's with House. What's his not Coach House, but I forget the guy's name. Something House was his trainer. But yeah, he did a lot of, he was on kind of the forefront of that. But for, in general, what can help out? Weight gain for sure. Being strong for sure. Understanding mechanics is probably going to be the biggest thing, but you're not going to be able to accomplish that, kind of in the weight room. But just being able to get into the position that you need and throw repeatedly at high intensity, you need to be able to get into a position here, allow for some layback. If you have tight shoulder, you're not going to be able to get your shoulder blade back and allow that layback as well. And it's going to start to go elsewhere. So we talked about, not training the unique out of people, right? And there's arm angles and there's other stuff that you have to account for. But in general, having good mobility and being able to move around is a good thing. But then you deal with some of the pros and they're just like, this is all I got. I'm like, okay, hey, we get it that much better. It's that much better. And that's okay. You can't totally hope to change it because, the morphology of, overhead throwing athletes is ridiculous. The bone density is different. The tendon quality, tissue quality, the hypertrophy on one side to the other. It's radical. It's crazy. And then you add in a Tommy John surgery or a thoracic outlet surgery or a rotator cuff surgery or a biceps or a pec or whatever. Lats are now big because those are kind of the, along with biceps, those are decelerators of everything. So people who are throwing at these massive amounts of velocity every pitch, their lats are like ripping off because they can't decelerate their arm anymore. Yeah. Whoa. They're tearing lats, which is remarkable knowing what a lat is and how thick and how strong the lat is. Can you imagine that? Ridiculous, right? So, keeping them injury-free, allowing them to get in good ranges of motion, strong, and be able to understand how to produce force, into the floor, I think are things that, low-hanging stuff that you can kind of work towards.
You said something about not training the uniqueness out of somebody. What does that mean? Can you give us some examples of some of the athletes? I know like Jeremy is like extremely explosive. Right. And he's got to be almost careful because he could like literally blow his whole body apart, like because he's so explosive.
Yeah.
So you talk to us about that more.
I think that initially kind of came from Joey DeFranco when he was talking about, he'd have his bigs, littles. So he'd have kind of the linemen, offensive, defensive lineman, and then he would have his, receivers. He's like, why am I going to make these people slower? Like, I don't want these guys to slow down. I want their force production. If he was on a Tendo unit, I think back then, I don't know what he was using now. I don't want them to be slow ever because this is how they make their money. This is the job that they do. So I'm never going to allow them to slow down so much. And amazingly enough, you're able to use 70, 80% at a clip that's still fast in his range. So I think there's that aspect of things. And then the whole coach the uniqueness out of people is, somebody squatting and you're looking at him and you're like, well, that's not how I would squat, but that feels good for you. Yeah. Okay, cool. Jeremy.
That's stupid. What? How high is that?
Yeah.
That's almost as tall as he is.
That's to a box and then onto a box. Jeez. So, I mean, and you just have to understand the athlete and who they are. And for him, it is one of those things where he actually does really, really well when we forcibly slow him down. I think that was his 903.
Mm-hmm.
So him and even Kaler, like to a point where it's just like, you're just going so fast. And, you know, neither one of them can kind of control lockout. And Alex, who Bohr sent me, is kind of in the same boat where it's like, we have to figure out a way to slow you down without slowing you down. So it's tricky stuff like that where you want to let them express their physicality the natural way that's got him to this point and just try to buttress everything else and help everything else move up and get stronger in the same time. You don't want to totally change somebody. We're like, well, I conventionally pull this. I'm like, well, you're a sumo deadlifter now because that's how I trained. And, you know, it's that idea of things. And I think that extends into sport a lot because people are like, well, that's not how we do it. Well, why do you do it that way? Because that's how we always do it. That's not a good answer. Okay, you can allow this kid to be who he is and be successful. You just have to understand how to coach him. Whether that's on the field or in the weight room, I think there's something to that because you have to allow people, allow kids, allow lifters, whatever it ends up being, to be themselves. Because after a while, it's like, why are people coming to you if you're never going to get it right? Right? Now, if your knees are collapsing and you look terrible, it's like, look, you're just going to get hurt. So we need to do, that's a good enough reason. But because, this is how everything goes. It's like, you can't give the same program to, a 5'6" kid to a 6'9" kid. And it's different. It's just allow it to be different. It's okay. Right. And you have to accept maybe some higher squats with a kid who's 6'8", 6'9", and just be like, that's a long fucking way to go. I'm just happy you didn't collapse. That's awesome. Good for you. Someone who's built to squat, you're like, it's like, cool, good for you. Why does he get to use more weight? It's like, 'cause he can. Like, and you can't yet. Like, oh, okay. So yeah, I think it's allowing people to be different, right? Everyone's lift different. Everybody moves different. And I mean, I remember when I saw Dan Green pull for the first time, I was like, he's going to fucking kill himself. And then I saw him pull again, and then I got to lift with him, and then I saw him pull again. I was like, you're fucking amazing. You're pulling yourself into good position. It looks like you're yanking on the bar, like indiscriminately and, irresponsibly, like lifting, but somehow that's putting you in a good position. And that's amazing. I hope no one ever lifts like you because no one's built like you. And I don't know how many other people can do that. But like people like Kaler, people like Jeremy, and a couple of other lifters have found a way to do that. But they're fewer and farther in between.
Yeah, he's so damn big.
Yeah,
It's like hips and legs and hamstrings.
He just yanks. But he pulls himself into a perfect good position, right? Mm-hmm. Where a lot of other people who are like, oh, I'm going to do that, they're going to get kicked out of position and then put them in a spot where maybe they can't recover from.
There's also the issue of an athlete being unique in just their mannerisms and their personality.
Yeah.
And I think you do a good job with training people that have way different personalities. I've been to your gym before a bunch of times and seen the different personalities, and you have to treat everybody a little differently. And everybody does kind of need a different program.
Yeah.
The same thing that's going to work for one person isn't going to work for another, not because scientifically it won't work, but because of mentally it might not work well for them, or they might be just bored to tears by it. They might not like it.
Yeah. I think that first, and I always kind of come back to listening to Dave Tate talk about like the different personalities at Westside, and he'd have to scream at somebody to get them motivated, and then go and whisper, and hug somebody and get them, and say it's okay, it's all right, you'll get
Mike Ruggiero.
I know I didn't want to drop the name, but that's
sweetheart.
that's exactly the clip that I'm talking about, or whenever he was talking about it, and that has always kind of stuck with me because it is kind of everybody's different and you don't know what they're kind of going through. And, and then Shako said it too, where he's just like, everybody comes into the gym and I always say, how are you? It's like, good. And they go around and they say hello to everybody. Right. And it got to a point at the gym where it's just like, it's this obnoxious like hug fest, and everyone comes in and does, some people, it takes them a couple months to be comfortable with it. And other people are just like, it's just, everyone has different personalities. And I want everybody to come I want people to want to come to the gym, and I want them to know that they're allowed to be who they are and that there's no judgment. We don't fucking care. We're only going to judge what you lift, right? And how you lift it. And if that's better for you, awesome, great. And I want you to leave, happy and better off. And the kids who are a little more shy, the kids who don't talk, the lifter who's puts the headphones on and doesn't talk. It's like, my goal for you is I want you to literally start walking into the gym, taking your shirt off and just flexing in the mirror. And we don't even have any mirrors, but, that sort of thing. Cause I want to try to bring out people's personalities.
Yeah.
And once they know that they're allowed to do that, it's awesome. Cause they're just like, I get it. I get what this place is. This is pretty cool. And in all of that, you kind of get to know who they are and you get to know mannerisms. And then it's just, I know that if Jeremy's going to come up to me and he's going to say, so I was thinking about doing this, and this. I'm like, great. You thought about it. That sounds like I think that's wonderful. I think that's good. Other people need me to be like, I don't know if that's and Jeremy has 7 different reasons for everything that he's doing. It's like, great. I think you should do that too. Cause it's super easy for me to, he's like, I'm going to do this today because of these 3 things. I'm like, awesome. I didn't have to think at all. I just have to say yes. Other people like, I was thinking of, like squatting with a barbell today. I was like, oh, okay. It's a heavy day today. Are you ready? I don't feel great, but I feel pretty good. Like, let's just do pretty good. That's awesome. Cool. Well, like, how heavy should pretty good be? I was like, I don't know. Let's figure that out today. Like, when you say, yeah, that's pretty good, then maybe we'll stop there. But is it like 3 reps? I'm like, sure. Like, that's fine too. Like, let's just figure it out. Let's, you got to allow people to kind of get to that. And I try to take a hands-off process opposed to really kind of shoving people and trying to, square peg, round hole things. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you feel good and you're like, I think I want to go up. Like, okay, well, let's make a, educated decision on how we're going to go up, what we're going to do. Is this going to negatively affect the rest of your week? Do you have competition? Do you have anything along these lines? No, cool. And then, I'm always like, hey, we want this to add something. We don't want to subtract from anything. This is all addition. Everything in here is addition. If there's any subtraction or division even, it's worse. We're not doing those. Mm-hmm. If this is going to add to things and make better elsewhere on the field in life, awesome, cool, good, go for it. But if you think there's any possibility that this is going to subtract, then the answer is probably no, or hey, let's just make a smaller jump or whatever it is.
Gotcha. There's a video I sent Andrew, and I actually wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it. And after this, it'd be interesting if we pull up the guy's page who this guy's making commentary on. But let's just watch this real quick. And the sound, yeah. Actually, pause.
I think I've seen this guy.
No.
You can probably turn off the music because it'll copyright hit us. Yeah. So let's, it's just gonna copyright us. So we'll replay it real quick. No music.
If you could just explain Nsima what's going on, though.
Yeah. So JT Performance, this isn't his page, but this is a commentary he has on this individual who does a lot of athletic training stuff for athletes, and
so like the movements and stuff, just like explosive sideways stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of balance stuff going on. And actually, Andrew, if you go to the bottom of this post, you'll be able to see the person's name. Not the post. You'll be able to see whose page it is right there. And
pull it up. I can't see it.
Oh, okay. And pull up their page because he has some interesting stuff on his page. But I'm curious what you think about like some of this stuff that trains an athlete's ability to maybe absorb impact. Like
was a Dak performance as well, right? That we had on the show.
Yeah, but Dak is his stuff is, I think, maybe somewhat different from this guy's stuff here. Mm-hmm. But you see, like, what are your thoughts on like some of this type of stuff for athletes?
So, for a long time, my goal was always to be the smartest person in the room, right? And at one point I had more letters after my name than I had in my full name. And what I wanted to do was to make sure that I knew what I was doing. And it got to a point where not that I knew so much, but the percentage of stuff that I had learned and I had researched and I had spent such a huge amount of time building up, what I could use for the population that I was dealing with is incredibly small.
Yeah.
Now, I think if we're going to be honest, and this again is a Buddy Morris thing, the best thing about this business is that everything works. The worst part about this business is that everything works. This sort of stuff, does it have a place in the program? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is it a program for my 84-year-old 84-pound soccer player? Probably a tough sell. Is this guy a professional athlete? Maybe. And does that work for him? Cool. Is he in the off season? Is he in the in season? Is this guy just really good at doing this stuff and bad at some other stuff, and you're just highlighting the good stuff opposed to the bad stuff? I don't know. But the percentage of people that I'm going to be able to deal with and effectively use a lot of this stuff is really, really small. I think you can use a lot of that stuff. The balance is something that I've kind of end arounded a little bit now. I like a lot of the Slack board. There's Slack blocks. Again, kind of a bunch of the ankle rocker stuff, and jumps in, certain situations, and, absorbing force in different spots. But that's for a smaller amount of population, right? All this stuff has a spot in training. But there's no way that this is how he trains everybody.
Yeah.
Because of the resources and the space that a lot of this stuff is going to take place in. If he's doing it one-on-one, okay, cool. But if you have a group of kids, it's going to be impossible, right? There's I'm not
going to be chaos. Someone's going to get hurt.
Exactly. So there's one of my lifters is a strength coach at a high school. High school just gets a bunch of new coaches. Coaches are just hell-bent on, I want every single one of my kids to have an individual program. I want it based off of velocity, the jump boards and all this other stuff. And he's just like, come on into the weight room, 3:30 on Thursday. And I just want you to watch 40 kids in less than 3,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Chaos.
45 minutes of work.
Well, yeah.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
Right. And he kind of looks around and he's like, you guys are doing a great job. Nobody got hurt. Right?
Yeah.
Nothing got set on fire. I think we did a really good job here today. So who can we apply a lot of this stuff for, right? And how much can you control? Cal Dietz is probably one of the smartest minds in strength and conditioning, but he works with such a small, select group of athletes that he can control. I mean, he has them omega weight, he has got 3 or 4 different, bio trackers on him. And he's been doing this for such a long time that he can granularly look at these people and understand and know how to make them work and how to make them go and apply things like this. I think there's stuff that you can use, but I mean, I don't know if I have a ton of people who could do that.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people out there can do a Copenhagen side plank really rigid and straight on for over a minute? Not necessarily a ton of people. A small amount. Now you're going to ask them to be active, up higher, harder, and shoulder stabilization. Look, if this works for this guy and certain stuff, there's a lot of stuff. Like I like that stuff. That's great. That's a warm up. That's doing a lot of really cool stuff, and that's a kettlebell and a little bit of space. When I really think that people who want to do all the sexy stuff, you can work up to some of that stuff, but you may never be able to get there because your athletes just aren't ready. And by the way, there's a ton of other stuff that you're going to be able to benefit from.
Yeah.
If we're doing something crazy like this, or not, that's not crazy. That's just a lunge, but something a little bit out of the norm, opposed to me saying like, hey, what'd you eat for lunch today? Let's talk about that. So which one is going to get us, better, longer lasting results?
Yeah.
It's probably talking about food and picking up those kind of small, small rocks on the way to some of the big rocks. But, you know, it's not like he's doing anything that's wrong or looks like he's getting hurt or could really hurt anyone as long as it's applied to the right population.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that people get caught up in doing stuff way too fast.
And the novelty.
Way too heavy, and it's the novelty. And then how do we progress this? That's the end level progression, right? I mean, off the top of my head, I can think of 25 exercises before we get to that one, right? And it's great. That's a really effective exercise. It's creative. I really, really like that. How do you set that up for, you know, who has 24 landmines?
Yeah.
Who has 24 barbells? Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things to kind of consider. And I mean, I think a lot of people want to, you know, I really think we got to give people, especially in strength and conditioning, especially working with multiple kids and multiple teams, a little bit more grace, right? If someone's going to pay me my hourly rate of $250 and we can get up to that stuff and I can be very awesome. But when I have 18 kids, right, I'm going to do the best with what I have. And I know what I can do and I know I can get them better. But we're probably not going to be able to get to that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is a special situation, yeah, awesome. Let's do it. But, you know, doing a bear crawl is just as effective sometimes.
I think what we're seeing, you know, sometimes with some of the stuff that's being shown on social media is you're seeing like
It's a highlight reel.
It's a highlight reel. It's also like I would say like they're professional athlete Instagrammers. You know, like they're not professional athletes usually. They're coaches. And one thing I think to pay attention with a coach is who else is in the picture? You know, who else is training? Who else is doing this? And when you just see it, it's just the guy himself. I think you have a lot of your answers on who this is working for or who this is being used on. So the more that you just see the guy himself promoting the thing, I'm not saying that's a telltale sign that it doesn't work, but it's a telltale sign that it hasn't been utilized and tested and maybe proven just yet on a lot of other athletes. Maybe it's working for that guy, and that's cool that he can do that. And I'm sure there are professional athletes and probably people that are just well-versed in movement that can probably go in and handle some of those movements and possibly do some of those movements even better than him. But I think it is something just to kind of keep in the back of your head of like, who's this guy working with?
Like one of my, you know, colleague, friend, mentor, Cressy, every time that you look at Eric's stuff, he's finding a creative way to dumb down an exercise to give to his professional athletes. And that's maybe a harsh, you know, look at what he's doing, but he's trying to throw novelty in there for the sake of not doing more stuff to get an athlete hurt. Because he's got, you know, I got 18 high school kids. He's got like 40 $10 million arms.
Sheesh.
They're not doing that shit. They're just not. Because how do you explain to the Yankees that you did something to, I won't say Garrett Cole because he might actually be hurt, to Judge or to Soto or to something. And then it comes out that it was because you were doing some fancy thing you saw on Instagram. Whew, man, you're going to lose your job. And, you know, House always talked about that, right? When he got, I think when he got fired from ASU, they're like, you know, got a lot of hamstring tears. And he's just like, I pull them all up. One guy tore his hamstring, you know, in an open field running, you know, with the ball or running after somebody. Someone else did it. You know, these are non-weight room lift, you know, things. You know, getting blamed for that is going to, you know, lose your job. So I'm not telling people to not do anything and not challenge kids, athletes, et cetera. But to a point, you have to make sure that they're able to do stuff, right? And it's, again, about addition. Is this going to positively affect everything else? If you and the athlete are like, yeah, then hey, I'm all for it.
If you're someone that's taking supplements or vitamins or anything to help move the needle in terms of your health, how do you know you really need them? And the reason why I'm asking you, how do you know, is because many people don't know their levels of their testosterone, their vitamin D, all these other labs like their thyroid, and they're taking these supplements to help them function at peak performance. But that's why we've partnered with Merrick Health for such a long time now, because you can get yourself different lab panels like the Power Project panel, which is a comprehensive set of labs to help you figure out what your different levels are. And when you do figure out what your levels are, you'll be able to work with a patient care coordinator that will give you suggestions as far as nutrition optimization, supplementation, or if you're someone who's a candidate and it's necessary, hormonal optimization to help move you in the right direction so you're not playing guesswork with your body. Also, if you've already gotten your lab work done, but you just want to get a checkup, we also have a checkup panel that's made so that you can check up and make sure that everything is moving in the right direction if you've already gotten comprehensive lab work done. This is something super important that I've done for myself. I've had my mom work with Merrick. We've all worked with Merrick just to make sure that we're all moving in the right direction and we're not playing guesswork with our body. Andrew, how can they get it?
Yes, that's over at merrickhealth.com/powerproject. And at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save 10% off any one of these panels or any lab on the entire website. Links in the description as well as the podcast show notes.
I want to read this caption as this is going on. It's from Eric Cressy, and it's funny because it lines up with exactly what you're just saying. Exercise execution matters far more than exercise selection. As an example, on a rotational landmine press, you can simply lean and press, or you can put force into the ground with a triplanar hip loading and athletically transfer that force through the trunk. A good league leg block further facilitates motion into scapular upward rotation that delivers the arm and in turn the barbell. Every rep is a chance to get better, but not if you simply go through the motions. Great work here from Pirates pitcher Quinn Priester.
Right.
But exactly.
Yeah.
You know?
And I mean, this is very specific to an overhead athlete, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, and this is a thing that we can benefit from. But that's a single arm, you know, that's what is that, 70, 80 pounds that he's doing for multiple reps. You can tell this guy has worked extremely hard to even get to this point. Look at his disgusting sweaty shirt, right? He has been working his ass off. So this isn't something that he just jumped into. There was a lot of work to get to one of this. And I can guarantee, knowing Eric, that Quinn has been with him for a number of years and he has had to work up to this. Yeah. He probably started landmine here. And then lightweight got to a certain point where Eric's like, okay, cool. Now we do push press. Now we're going to, lead leg block. And then now we're going to go scapular to upper rotation with a turn in all these other things.
You can see how deliberate everything is.
Everything is
how much the guy is moving his opposite arm, not the arm that's pressing, but the other arm is coming down. Like he's clearly almost like flexing that, almost like activating that lat on that side.
Right. So I think there's so much to be said about proper selection. And I mean, there's so much that should go into it. Is this where is this athlete in his competitive career, in the competitive year? He doesn't do this with everybody because there are a lot of pitchers who have a ton of, their shoulder is already raised. Now you're going to encourage scapular upward rotation. He's not going to do that. What he's going to do is he's going to try to be able to facilitate being able to pull that scap back down, down and back in between, because that needs to move in order to get to the ranges of motion that these guys need to get to. So this isn't something that you can just throw at all pitchers and get something out of, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, probably to a start, there's a lot of really, really positive things about that. But this is something that this guy, has worked himself up to. And, but that's a glorified shoulder press, push press, right? And he's trying to make it exciting enough for $1 million arm to come in and do it. And you got to throw a little, to me, that's there's a lot of novelty to that.
Yeah.
Right. You don't need a bunch of other stuff. Right. I mean, and Eric used to be, a power lifter, and he used to be big on chain and big on bands, and they're all gone. They're all gone. Very rarely will he use any of it. He uses chains on deadlift, and I think that's it nowadays. Mm-hmm. But that's where he came from. He was a powerlifter. And that's, he's heavy into conjugate. And if you look at his programming, there's a lot of conjugate aspects to what he does. But you don't see him doing a bunch of weird, crazy stuff. Why? Here's Quinn Priester. Dude, he was the #1 draft pick for the pitchers, for the Pirates. That tanks your whole, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Period. You will never get anyone from them. That agency will never send you someone else. That guy is going to shit talk you for the rest of his fucking career because you ruined it. That guy's next contracts could be $100 million.
Yeah.
You have to start thinking about these things. And if you overthink it, it's, paralysis by analysis. I get it. But especially with someone who has any sort of possibility, I think it's 7% of high school athletes will go on to play college. And of the college, I think it's like 1% will be able to go on into any sort of professional sports.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with a really, really small amount in general. But anyone who has aspirations, you need to foster those aspirations and take them seriously because it's part of who you are. Because if you do right by that kid's never going to stop singing your praises. That dad's going to tell every other dad, like, well, I went to Jesse or I went to whatever, right? And it's going to be a never-ending turned-on faucet for you. Mm-hmm. You should approach those things that way, not man, I can't wait to have him do this exercise. Let's put it on Instagram. And I don't know what that guy's doing, right? I think that, again, there's a lot of really good, cool stuff that he's doing. But for me, the application is so small. But I mean, this is just a cursory look. There's two things that I'd be like, oh, I could totally use that in a warm-up, or I could totally use something there.
Yeah.
But in a warm-up and also in just exercise selection, you have to be able to start somewhere and progress to something else that leads into something else that also leads into something else that can also be progressed, right? And then you also need it because if you're dealing with a team or a bunch of athletes, you need to be able to regress that.
Yeah.
Because not everybody can, do the single arm, static hold, kettlebell walk in a bear crawl in a circle thing.
Yeah.
You have to be able to say, you just do bear crawls in a circle. Like, okay, cool. We'll work up to the one leg or one arm, right? Okay. And then we'll do 9 pounds and then 16 and 20. And like he had like a 56-pound kettlebell. That's really difficult. Mm-hmm. The kid can't hold a plank. Should I do that for him? No. And I'm sure that guy knows that, right? And again, it's a highlight reel. And that's awesome. And it's saying, like, look how much I know. That's really cool. That's really, really cool. Mm-hmm. But how much of that can you actually put out there? Probably a very small amount. And that's okay. You can be really, really effective and stay in this business for a long time without, having anybody do anything crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. People might see even the things that like Patrick Mahomes does in training. And he's got a trainer. He's got a coach. He's got someone who's taken him through all these different movements. But he's been with that guy since he was in like 6th grade.
Right.
So like you're saying, I mean, first of all, Patrick Mahomes is one of the greatest athletes in the world. Like he's absolutely amazing and incredible. So you got to keep that in mind. But you also have to keep in mind, like he's been working at this for a really long time. So those drills that you see him doing, maybe it's not the best thing for you to go jump into haphazardly.
Yeah. I mean, he's doing a lot of like Proteus stuff. I think if he does, I think it was on here. It's a machine that he's kind of pushing, pulling.
Oh yeah,
that force, right?
That throwing thing, right? That the machine you're talking about?
Yeah, it's Proteus motion. Again, that's one of Cressy's things. But there's a lot of stuff like not all of. I mean, a step back lunge, a face pull. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is all really basic stuff. Bear crawl, straight leg with some sliders. Awesome. It's all really, really good stuff. Easy stuff. We don't have to overdo some of it. And this, some of this stuff is going to be very particular to Patrick, right?
Yeah, his coach will actually do almost like myofascial release while he's doing other stuff. That's actually interesting. Throwing like that towel is kind of neat. But yeah, he'll sometimes do like myofascial release like in an exercise. I've seen him do that before too. It's super interesting.
But that's
specific.
An extreme 1%. That's 99th percentile of 99th percentile, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and he does stuff that, no one's ever done.
No one's
like
ever
when,
done before, yeah.
I mean, I remember Steve, this will age us, but I mean, Steve Young was like one of the first people to maybe kind of throw a football sidearm unconventionally, right? And he would only do that every once in a while. And then you see Patrick Mahomes doing that, like while he's falling down and flips it backward, and you're like, nobody else should try to do that because Patrick Mahomes is the only person who can do that.
Switching gears a little bit, I'd like to get your take on this. I sent Andrew a clip as well. It's a current or a more recent clip from Nick Saban. But with you being like a mentor to a lot of people, I'd like to get some of your take on this.
He's amazing. That guy's awesome. That's Ted Cruz. That's not Nick.
We're getting there.
That's not the old ball coach.
How much did the current chaos and state of the law contribute to your decision to retire now?
Well, all the things that I believed in for all these years, 50 years of coaching, no longer exist in college athletics. So it's always was about developing players. It was always about helping people be more successful in life. My wife even said to me, we'd have all the recruits over on Sunday with their parents for breakfast, and she would always meet with the mothers and talk about how she was going to help and impact their sons and how they would be well taken care of. And she came to me, like right before I retired and said, why are we doing this? And I said, what do you mean? She said, all they care about is how much you're going to pay them. They don't care about how you're going to develop them, which is all what we've always done. So why are we doing this? So, to me, that was sort of a red alert that we really are creating a circumstance here that is not beneficial to the development of young people. And I want their quality of life to be good. I think, as I said before, name, image, and likeness is a great opportunity for them to create a brand for themselves. I'm not against that at all. But to come up with some kind of a system that still can help the development of young people, I think, is paramount to the future of college athletics.
I mean, I don't know if you can say it much better than that. I mean, I think it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy that we're losing coaches like Nick Saban, that we're losing people to a lesser extent like a Bill Belichick, or these coaches who have just been around forever. And not only are they amazing at their job, but, so many people have gotten better because of those men. It's a dying breed. I have a client who was a collegiate baseball player at Minnesota, and then he transferred to Oklahoma. He went and saw Minnesota. I think they were playing Sac State or something. Coach is still there. Coach runs up, gives him a hug, says, oh my gosh, asked about his wife, asked about his kids. This is a middle relief guy who threw 30 innings for this coach 30 years ago. Mm. And this guy remembered his name, remembered he was married, remembered he had a son and a daughter, remembered that his daughter committed to volleyball, to a certain school, all this other stuff. Those guys, those coaches are disappearing, and it's a tragedy. And a lot of it has to do with the parents who have these completely unrealistic expectations for their kids and or see these kids as their way out of the life that they're in for something. Very specifically, just kind of a little bit of a sidebar there. Very specifically what what Coach Saban is talking about is the name, image, likeness stuff, which allows, so you have X amount of, for anyone who doesn't know, you have X amount of scholarships per sport, per school. Not everybody has the same because revenue is different for schools. Not every sport has the same. Not everybody is maxed out. That stays the same. But there are now, with name, image, likeness, there are these basically businesses that are starting up that will pay kids to come to your school. And you can rely on these people to help make sure that you have the recruits that you need to. Heard it earlier this year that a high level QB1, QB2 in the transfer portal is $1 million. That's awesome for the kid. Good for you. Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. That's awesome. But it turns college athletics into something completely different. It's now just a bunch of assassins who are coming in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. They don't care how much of a good person that you can make them, that Coach Saban can make them. They don't care about the degree on the wall. They don't care if they go to school. They just care that you can pay more than he can pay. And I will play for you. Now, that presents problems for the kid. That presents problems for the coaching staff. That presents problems for the team. Because most of the college coaches aren't making $1 million a year.
Yeah.
So now you're a badass quarterback that just transferred in. What the fuck are you going to listen to me? Bitch, I make $1 million. It's like, what do you make? I think our conversation is over. I think you should just leave the weight room. There's no, I can't help. Right. And I mean, not every kid is like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not that hard to imagine that that's a situation that is going to rapidly approach. And, you know, flawed as it is, the college system, and, you know, the NCAA has made billions of dollars off the backs of kids who didn't make anything, right? And might be working somewhere with a shitty back and all these other things. And I'm not saying that that's right. I think that this is a good thing, but how they thought giving an 18-year-old kid $1 million is going to be a good idea is beyond me. They just really, there's no foresight there, right? And, you know, there's so much of that kind of going on, and there's, you know, the integrity of the kids and even the coaches. You know, if you're in the same, you know, if we're rivals and I steal your pitcher, I steal your quarterback because I'm going to pay you more, and then that kind of sucks, right? It was like, okay, maybe there's a rule that we could, you know, deal with that, but it's becoming harder and harder to deal with these situations because people are becoming so empowered in certain different ways, and their expectations are so ridiculous. And I don't know, I hate to complain about it without any sort of a solution, right? And, you know, I'm not nitpicking. I'm trying not to be negative about it. I think there's a lot of positives about it. But when you have people like Nick Saban who are like, you know what, this isn't the same. And the baseball coach from Minnesota is retiring. It's like, yeah, I don't get to do what I want. I don't have a baseball team anymore. You know, I got 20 kids that are here to hope that they get drafted or hope that I can pay more than whomever, whatever. And that's not what they signed up for. What's that?
I'm just curious. Does that also mean like a high volume of really good athletes are trying to go to certain schools and not others because of that?
It's whoever has the most. I mean, I don't know, you know, everybody's motivation is going to be different, right?
Yeah, of course.
So, you know, you're going to want to go to a place because so-and-so recruited you, because you like the school, because the facilities are awesome, because it's proximity to your parents being able to come and watch you. And, you know, and they develop kids to be whatever. You take a chance on that, right? I don't know the percentage of motivation of kids who are going to say like, I'll come here if you hit my number. But it's not hard to imagine that that's happening a fair amount of time. And that makes the whole recruiting side of things different. And it makes the, you know, if you can, you know, think about Phil Jackson with it, you know, everybody, you know, that's a lot of divas on a team to try to figure out. Now you're not managing game stuff. You're not X and O's. You're dealing with ego management. And what if I beat you out and you're making $1 million and I'm not? What if you get hurt and I come in and I do better? It's like, now the coach is like, do we take his $1 million and give it to him? Because if not, he's going to leave. But he might leave too. But who's better? How do you deal with those things, right? And it's no longer like, you know, it's just changing the face of things. And I think in some instances, in some cases, I think it is a positive thing because it'll allow people to take care of, you know, some bills and maybe get out of a situation that they were in. But it's going to present a lot more problems. And I think this is indicative of when Coach Saban and some other guys who've been in it for a long time, and they're in it because they love what they do, right? They're not in it for kickbacks from an agent or whatever, right? They're in it because this is all that they know how to do and they're good at it. And it's going to be coming, those people are dinosaurs. And it sucks because they're going to go away. And, you know, it's becoming harder and harder, you know, dealing with it on the high school side of things. You know, there's a bunch of job openings all the time and people just aren't filling them. And the reason is it's impossible. You can't coach a kid. You can't say something negative to a kid. You have to deal with these parents who think their kid is the shit and you're a fucking idiot for not playing them. And they're going to take that up to the administration and get you fired. And you're making $2,000 a year.
I'm thinking right now in my head, I'm thinking like,
Why?
if the coaches that coached me weren't allowed to use negativity, they wouldn't have said anything, I don't think.
Right. And I mean, there's some extreme examples in there, right? And I mean, there's people who've had bad, like really bad, get hit type. That's not okay. Okay, we're not endorsing that. But if you have a style that's abrasive, I mean, Bobby Knight. Oh my God, right? There's no possible way this guy exists. Dinosaur.
No, he would have like some of his better players like just pay and buy him out and be like, dude, I'm done with you.
Well, I mean, no one would go to Indiana.
That's true, yeah.
Because no one would play for him.
So I know like NIL deals, they're not coming from like one organization, right? Like,
so every school has their own, I forget what they call it. It's like a conglomerate or it's a, coalition or whatever the hell it is. And the coach can't say, Andrew, if you come here, I'm going to give you $100,000 plus the scholarship, plus all the other stuff. It was like, you have this here. If you come here, go over there, talk to Bob. Bob will tell you what we can do. And it's going to be somebody's Nissan dealership and, someone's bagel shop and something that they're all kind of throwing stuff in. Say, hey, we'll sponsor you. And we will sponsor you by paying you $100,000 and you do a commercial for us or you do a couple posts or whatever. I know, I know a couple of athletes who have gotten like really, really small scale, like, hey, it's $200 a month. Just put up, it was like a job recruiter site or something along those lines. And they were president of a, whatever her major was. And she was putting out there getting like $200. And that was the extent of her NIL money. It's like, dude, that's awesome. That's, taco money or beer money or whatever it is that you want. That's fantastic. Good for you. But that's how they kind of get away with it, where there's these independent things that are connected but not connected. It's just basically sponsorships from donors,
alumni, and so forth.
Yeah.
It'd be sick to get a power project, NIL deal. But what I was going to ask, though,
everybody wants money. If you want to influence Santa Monica City College, brother.
But what I was going to ask is like, so again, like in the NFL, right? There's a cap space. Is there anything like that with NIL deals at all? Because if there's not, then I would assume that, because like Alabama and some of these bigger schools that are like huge in football, like they had not a monopoly, but they're like, hey, do you want to go to the NFL? Okay, then you got to go get coached by Nick Saban. So they had like the upper hand.
Right.
But now I'm imagining just better, wealthier areas are going to be able to get a shit ton of players.
Yeah.
That's wild.
But I mean, that's it's cool to be on the side that I am because I have a couple of kids who are going to get to deal with that stuff. They're that talented. But there's a juggling act where you have to be like, okay, cool. Do you like the school? Yes. Okay. Do you like the coaches? Yeah. Okay. I think that, and they got good parents. Like that's going to outweigh what they're going to, if we even get any NIL money. Cool. They're going to develop me into whatever, right? But without parental supervision or someone who's really cares about your future, you might take a deal and you might end up somewhere that you fucking hate. And then that's a year. And then you have to try and do it again. And you have to try and do it again until you find the right spot. I think Saban said it a couple times where it's like these kids aren't learning how to be resilient and learning how to stick through things and learning how to, if it's not just completely given to them, they're not taking anything. They just want you to give it to them, right? And they're not actually earning a lot. They're earning stuff because they're talented and everything, but they have to stay on their grind in order to really do much better. But they're kids, we call them like 4 or 5-star recruits. Like in 3 years, they like a true 5-star recruit at a college. Probably over the life of his career is going to, it's $2.5 million. That's crazy.
Wow.
It's craziness.
Wow.
And as an 18-year-old, how do you turn that down?
Shit.
Right? Luckily the kids that I get to deal with have great moms and dads. And they're just like, you don't go talk to Bob over there at the coalition. I'm going to go talk to Bob. I mean, it's just like, because they're going to be like, hey, we'll get you one of these. Like, no, talk to my dad, man. I don't know. And they go talk to dad, and dad's just like, I don't fucking care about your money. Tell me about the degree he's going to get. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. So, I mean, there's some people who are just like, my son, just like what Saban's talking about. It's like, how much money are you give me? And like, we flew you down here. We're making you breakfast at our house, and you're demanding X amount of money, or you're not gonna come to the school. Like, you should be kind of, that's awesome that you got here. Enjoy it. Yeah. That's really cool. And if any offers and you can play yourself into some more money, that's great. Yeah, you'll earn it. Because I mean, where he's from, Alabama's just they can do pretty much whatever they want. But there's also other schools who, and it is really interesting, there are schools who have and are throwing crazy money at kids, but they can't get them to come because the program isn't that good, or the coaches aren't at the level that they are. So that's why you have all these, and now it's turned into a position where these coaches, like the dominoes from Harbaugh and Saban, retiring, like the coaching carousel was crazy, absolutely crazy. So, and then that just disrupts everything too, because kids are there because of a coach or because they got recruited. If the coach leaves and the recruiter left, you are free. You can do whatever you want. They're trying to bring you there. But then the new coach is coming in trying to get you to stay at the same time. There becomes a bidding war too. And it's just like, it's much more of a business than it is a sport at that point. And it's unfortunately, not everybody is going to benefit from this, right? Not all the kids are going to be able to reap some of these rewards. And some of these kids are still going to get taken advantage of, which is the worst part about it, which we're trying to get away from in having the NIL to start with. It's just like, we got to stop doing this. These kids earn some money. It's great, good, fine. If you follow Johnny Manziel, they earn their money different ways anyways. So, now you make it legal, whatever it is. I don't know if it makes it better. I don't know if the product and you see the separation of, top 5 schools to top 10 schools to top 20 schools, especially in football, right? You're like, oh, it's the number 4 team gets blown out by 40. Like, whoa, shit. And that's just the way that it is. And if you're not on that team, then you're not going to get seen, and then maybe you don't get sponsored. So why would you go somewhere else? Yeah. So, I mean, it just muddies the water a lot. And more than anything, it's a tragedy to see these guys who are these coaches, these amazing people, just disappearing because they're just like, this isn't what I signed up for. This is not this. My job description is completely different.
Jesse Burdick, who do you coach, and how can somebody hire you?
I coach anyone who wants to be coached. Anyone who I can help, I'm willing to do so. They can always contact me, Jesse Burdick, on all socials. My phone number is out there everywhere. Emails are out there and everywhere. And, at this point, I'm so happy to be able to do what I do professionally and to continue to be able to support my family and do the things that I want to do. And, I try not to limit it to any one person in particular, because I think that everybody deserves some help one way or the other. I'll answer my phone. I'll answer text messages. I'll answer emails. Probably do way too much for it for not enough return. But that's how I got to where I am, because people answered the phone. And, I always want to make sure I can pay that back to anyone in any sort of way. But yeah, you can catch me anywhere. Not as prolific as I used to be on the socials, but I'm there. Trust me, watching. Not in a weird way, though.
You have a powerlifting team as well, right?
Yeah, we have the powerlifting team, PowerWOD team. We just moved gyms over to CrossFit Pleasanton, and we're starting to. I think we have 4 or 5 lifters lifting in like 2 weeks, another 4 or 5 in another couple months. So trying to build that back up as well. COVID really kind of hurt the powerlifters. They, everyone kind of scattered or decided that their powerlifting career was over.
Too heavy.
Yes. And, it's hard to, besides like to shear, right? Like, how could you do that on your own in your garage? You got to be a special, crazy person in order to do that. So you need a little bit more of a gym. So some people have kind of transitioned and taken their fitnesses elsewhere.
If you guys enjoyed this episode of Jesse Burdick, check out this episode right here with Jack Cruz. We talked a little bit about him at the beginning of this episode, but we did learn a lot from Jack, even though he was a little bit mean to us. He taught us a lot about the sun, heat, and cold, and there's a lot of good stuff in that episode, so click it right here.